Good morning. It's a very great pleasure, this community spotlight, to be talking to our own medical advisor, Dr. Taylor Kuhn. Before I jump in and let Taylor let rip with his expert experience and views on the longevity space and how he got involved in Rejuve.ai, I should just give a little introduction. Feel free to chip in, Taylor, if you want to, but I just thought I'd set the scene for our community. Bearing in mind, as I've got here, it says you're a board certified clinical neuropsychologist with expertise in neurocognitive assessment, mental health treatment, and rehabilitation. So you've got extensive training from institutions like Harvard, Boston University, and UCLA, and you co-founded the Integrated Clinic, where you provide a wide range of neuropsychological and psychodiagnostic services. I hope that's a reasonable intro. What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm a board certified clinical neuropsychologist, which basically means I'm a
Hmm.
mind mechanic. So we
Right.
do objective data-based assessments of people's brain health by testing their cognitive functions like attention and memory and the
Hmm.
psychiatric functions like anxiety and depression, and then mapping those back onto the brain regions and brain networks that are responsible for those. So we give
Hmm.
diagnoses ranging from ADHD to Alzheimer's disease, and then use those hundreds of data points we collect to individually tailor patients' treatment plans. Um,
Hmm.
I'm also a
Wow.
research neuroscientist. I have a lab at UCLA, and I'm one of the associate directors of the Center for Cognitive Neuroscience, which is one of the two research MRI centers there. So we do a lot of neuroimaging research with people
Hmm.
in MRIs and look at the structure and function of their brain. I was involved in the Human Connectome Project, which is a very large National Institute of Health funded tracking of the brain across the lifespan. And
Hmm.
now I do a lot of brain modulation research. So we use
Hmm.
ultrasound in particular to put energy into certain parts of the brain to try to make things like anxiety, depression, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's better, and also to deliver small molecules to the brain for longevity purposes. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for giving us some time out of your day. Obviously, very busy. I'll jump straight into it and ask a question. I guess a lot of the community will like to know is, what drew you to get involved in Rejuve.ai, and what excites you most about its mission?
Absolutely. So I actually went to college with Gabriel Axel Montez, who's the
Hmm.
CEO of Pathform and plays in the AI band with Ben Getzel. So we've
Hmm.
been talking about AI and this kind of space for a very, very long time. And I've
Hmm.
supported Pathform in some different ways and built some different products with him. And so I've been aware of the Singularity Net for quite a while, and I've been tracking both the technology and the coin for quite a while. And when I learned about Rejuve, I thought it was just super exciting and overlap with some of the work I've done. For example, some of my brain imaging work was to look at how different diseases accelerate brain age beyond chronological age. So can you, for
Hmm.
example, put someone in MRI, pull out some metrics about their brain, and if in healthy people, can you use machine learning and AI to predict their chronological age? And we show that you can. And then could we show that with a model really well trained to predict someone's age based on their structural brain health, can you see if different diseases actually accelerate or augment that aging trajectory? And we show that, for example, with people living with chronic neuroinflammation from HIV, that is indeed the case. So I already had a background in kind of machine learning as it and AI as it related to
Hmm.
um, um, aging in the context of disease. And I also do work in regenerative medicine, stem cells and exosomes, which of course have a really big role in terms of healing and treating disease, but also absolutely have a role in longevity. So kind of this brain health and AI for chronological age and accelerated age prediction, meeting with this regenerative medicine and potentially
Hmm.
extending the lifespan. When those things merged, was right about the time that I learned about Rejuve, and I thought, wow, here's a group that's putting together not just a single metric like MRI brain data, but multiple modalities of data coming together into a massive model built on this great platform to try to predict people's biological age. I also work with some of the people at UCLA who did DNA methylation age, so another way of predicting biological age and acceleration or deceleration into healthier aging. So it was just kind of all coming together at the same
Hmm.
time. And Gabe was kind enough to put me in touch with Jasmine, and we had a really great call. And as they say, it's the rest is history. I'm really excited to be involved.
Nice, nice. There's a lot going on, and impressed with how you connected with the space, how you've connected with Juve. But maybe we should talk, understand a little bit more about what's your own, separate from Rejuve AI, what's your own involvement in the longevity space? It'd be interesting to find out about that.
Absolutely. So initially, some of that brain imaging work I was describing was based off of some DNA methylation work that someone at UCLA named Steve Horvath had done. He'd kind of come
Hmm.
up with this way to track chronological age and deviations from that because of disease based on a blood-based marker. And so it was based on that idea of this, kind of actual chronological age versus biological age gap that we did and built the brain age gap models. And so from a research perspective, in terms of tracking it, that's kind of where that started. And I've continued to dominate out in that space. And other people in the UK and EU have been doing similar work, and we've all been partnering. But then there was this interesting convergence. When I started my ultrasound work, the idea was that ultrasound would itself be the treatment. But then we realized that, there's this blood-brain barrier. This is kind of asteroid belt around the brain that tries to
Hmm.
keep most things out. So
Right.
getting biologics or drugs or stem cells or exosomes to the brain is tricky. And right about the time that we were getting deep into the ultrasound work, using the ultrasound as its own treatment, we realized that ultrasound can actually be used to deliver molecules and drugs to the brain really successfully. And I work with a lot of these regenerative medicine people, and we realized that we could use ultrasound to get particularly exosomes into the brain. And there's this really exciting paper that came out in 2017 where they showed that if you take exosomes from the brain of a young rat and put it into the brain of an old rat, the old rat gets younger. Same
Mhm.
thing is true in the opposite direction. You can make a young rat older. You can accelerate or decelerate aging by getting
Hmm.
exosomes into the brain. So again, it was just kind of this convergence all at the same time of realizing that these spaces that I was already in could all be brought together to get exosomes into the brain and potentially extend healthy aging, or even slow down aging and extend, healthy longevity. So I've been working on that quite heavily over the past several years, working on a longevity XPRIZE in that space right now, trying to
Ah.
demonstrate that we know that we've already published, we know we can deliver the exosomes to the brain. We know in rodents it decelerates aging. So now the question is, can we see that same slowing of the biological clock down in humans? So that's been kind of my, funnel journey into longevity. And it just kind of beautifully happened that the several different spaces that I was already working in kind of were able to come together in a way that we're hoping will be a meaningful contribution to successful longevity.
Right. Wow. Actually, picking up on your mention of the X Prize as it relates to longevity, what's your take on that? What's your involvement? Because obviously that's could potentially be pretty significant, but it hasn't been discussed that much. It'd be good to get your take on that, Taylor.
Yeah, so I'm previous to this experience right now, I'm more peripherally aware of the X Prize,
Hmm.
a company that does some really cool lightning physics to track where lightning will strike, whether or not it'll cause a forest fire, whether or not that forest fire is wildlife healthy or is an unhealthy one, and then send firefighters early, like an early detection system. I went to the University of Florida, and this group came out of the AI core at the University of Florida, and I'm an investor in them. So, and they
Hmm.
won the X Prize a year or so ago. So I kind of watched as they were successful through that process and cheerleaded them on. And now the ultrasound work that I've done and the group that I'm a part of, and the exosome work that I've done and the group that I'm a part of, we're joining forces to put together a longevity X Prize application now,
Hmm.
in the hopes of having that funding and scientific support to really pursue a clinical trial of ultrasound delivered exosomes to the brain for longevity. So we've submitted our letter of intent, and we're hoping to be invited to submit a full application. And in the meantime, we're gearing up all the necessary research and regulatory pieces so that we're ready to go. But it's been fascinating. I've gotten to meet a bunch of the people who are kind of on the leadership board and involved in that, and getting a flavor of what is exciting to the XPRIZE community and
Hmm.
what they're trying to kind of help guide and drive forward, both in longevity space and in ecological impact space, as I described as well. It's really exciting, and I'm hopeful that I can kind of bring that experience to Rejuve as well.
Yeah. Well, good luck with your application. It sounds
Thank you.
fascinating. And yeah, as coming back to Juve, how do you know what do you think? How do you think Rejuve AI's work will impact longevity research? What do you see as the promise and maybe some of the challenges to that potential?
I see a couple. So on the one hand, academic research is really, really important, and it is
Hmm.
also very methodical and somewhat slow.
Yeah.
We change one variable at a time, and we work in a very linear and clear process, and that absolutely is worthwhile and has merit. And one of the things that I love about, what I've heard described as privatemia is that they can go faster. And
Yeah.
so I like very much that Rejuve is bringing all of these different data sources together based on analytics from meta-analyses and published research, and has built this really beautiful AI model to predict aging and to start making recommendations for lifestyle changes. As a psychologist, I really appreciate behavioral interventions. Not that
Hmm.
medications and all these other things aren't valuable, and they are, but I love the emphasis that Raju puts on tracking, quantified health. It's a powerful movement, and I'm glad it's happening. On being aware of lifestyle, sleep, diet, behavioral factors that are going to contribute to healthy or unhealthy aging, and being able to show that to someone on an individual, personalized, daily basis. I think that's going to have a huge impact. I also appreciate that it's such a dynamic platform that, like, I should, but I don't wear a wearable device. But a
Hmm.
lot of people do. And so I can still use the tool and it'll work with my data, even though I don't have a wearable. But someone who does have a wearable, it will work with their data also. And so this ability to be very fluid and flexible in terms of the data streams that are coming in, but still make robust and reliable predictions and recommendations. I just think that's such a powerful platform. And I also think that one of the things that, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for this, but one of the things that's often lacking with hardcore academic research is the translation and communication of those findings to the public.
Right.
It's part of why I do clinical work. It's part of why I like to be an entrepreneur, is because I feel like I have a one-on-one direct impact with my patients. And through spaces like this, we have a much broader impact. I've published some really cool papers, and I'm not sure that they've made an impact in people's lives.
Hmm.
But this is already something that's going to make a major impact in people's lives. It's going to have a daily application to helping people live better, helping people live longer. And that impact piece is so,
Hmm.
so important to me and to the whole team. I think to everybody who's using it. And that piece is just something that it's just so hard to translate, from a research lab into actually
Hmm.
impacting someone's life. But this platform is built to do just that. And that is part of where I derive the most meaning from being involved.
Right. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. I hear what you're saying, and actually reminds me of the article we had on our blog recently about N of one trials
Mhm.
and decentralization. And I guess you can see the connection I'm making there between getting that impact kind of on the grassroots level in a way that Rejuve can deliver that maybe academia finds more tricky. But I'm no expert. What's your take on that?
I think that's such a good point that you brought up. If you look at research trials of any intervention, right? It can be
Mm.
psychotherapy, it can be a drug, it can be exercise, tai chi, meditation. There's a group of people for whom it works, right? Yeah, the antidepressants work for 40 to 60% of people. That means they don't work for 40 to 60% of people, and there are often a lack of publications trying to explain who those people are and why, right? There are definitely factors that we could figure out that
Mm.
explain why some things work for some people and other interventions don't. But I think this N of one opportunity with what we call ecologically valid data, right? Like, this is data
Mm.
that's real world from my life, from your life, and it's being tracked over time. That's going to make it so that the N of one, in the most meaningful way, I know if I'm one of the people that the intervention works for, if I'm one of the people that it doesn't. We can probably figure out why it does or doesn't work for me. And even whether or not we try to answer that question, we can pivot to a different treatment, a
Mm.
different intervention, a different behavioral change, and continue to iterate on that N of one so that we get to the best outcome. It becomes this, like, what are the personalized medicine, right?
Yeah.
This huge move for medicine tailored to you as an individual. It becomes this closed loop of, I know what my data looks like. This model tells me how I'm doing. It makes recommendations. I get to try that. And that data feeds right back into the model. I see if it's working or not. And I get to continue to tweak and iterate and get that loop going until the N of one gets the outcome they want. Right. Which is so different than, you're in a clinical trial. Maybe you get the placebo, maybe you get the intervention, maybe it works, maybe
Mm.
it doesn't, and then the trial is over. we've moved towards a place of trying to be more ethical about that. So, for example, if you're in the placebo group, you don't get the treatment. If we find out the treatment works, we then give it to you at the end of the study, right? So there's certainly a movement towards medical ethics being better about that, but it's not individually tailored or with this real-time ongoing N of one. And I think that that's just so powerful.
Right. I guess that's speaks to reduce, but the infrastructure, that decentralization, but also it's community centric. The two come together in allowing that to happen. Do I get that right? I mean, how do you see it in terms of the community side and the actual N of one side of things?
I think one of the beautiful things about decentralized platforms is that
Mm,
it's really organic and we'll get to see what people do with it.
right.
I can imagine groups getting together and saying, "Hey, we're all like I've been a Tai Chi and Qigong practitioner for how old am I? 18 years now." And so I could imagine trying to get together with a group of people on the platform who are also into Tai Chi and Qigong and saying, "Hey, let's all, we all do Yang style. Great, let's do Yang style 5 days a week for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, and let's see if things change." Whereas other people might be triathlon runners or really into vitamins and nootropics. I can just see communities organizing around things that they're passionate about and exploring together how those relate to their general health. I can also see an opportunity for people to get play with the data themselves, do open access research, and kind of see what comes from that, and maybe that gets sent out to the broader research community. Maybe that gets folded in as a new opportunity on the platform. It just that whole opportunity to be decentralized and be at least to a certain extent, open access or playful, it really allows for organic awesomeness to happen. And I'm not sure I have a real prediction of what that'll be, but I'm excited to see what it is.
Right, I like it. That's an interesting point on the potential and how groups can come together and self-organize, agree on ways to monitor their own data using Rejuve.ai. So thank you. I think that's a good place to conclude this short but very fascinating discussion. Taylor, is there anything you wanted to add, having gone through this conversation that I may have forgotten or should have asked you?
I don't think so. I really appreciate being here. I'm grateful to be part of the group, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Great. Well, thank you once again. That's Dr. Taylor Kuhn, and a medical advisor for Rejuve.ai. But if you fancy being on one of our community spotlights, please get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.